Yeah, it's good to be back. Pretty decent weather we're having. Yeah, okay. But you know, I've been gone a couple of weeks. But couldn't you have like kind of run the vacuum over the place or dusted a bit or? Yeah, all right. Okay, I gotta go. Yeah, all right. Hey, welcome to season 5, episode 5, Niagara 411 Live with Sterry. He was just saying that he dusted once, but then it came back, so he's not going to get caught in that scam again. I don't know. Hard to get good help. Hey, well, welcome to episode 5 of season 5. It is good to be back after a couple weeks away. 2, 3, whatever. Man, I lose track of time. What a beautiful winter we're having. Now that I've said that, it's going to get crazy. But anyway, we have a jam-packed show today. Did you see the lights in the sky last night? 6:45, 7 o'clock, something like that. Hello, ladies. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, lights in the sky over Niagara last night. We're going to be talking to Scott Sutherland, science writer with Weather Network in a bit. And those are your specials. Those are the things that are going on today at where? Fiddler's Poorhouse. Right here. It's open right now. They're opening a half an hour early just for us. 11:30. Come on in, have some lunch with us. We are brought to you by Gale's Gas Bars, who have been fueling this program for quite some time now. We also have Virgin Insurance Limited still as a sponsor of our program, and Ace Alignment, glad to have them still along for the ride, as well as our latest sponsor, Equal Wellness Services. We'll tell you all about those folks on the program coming up. Powered by WeeStream. Kevin Jack, our executive producer, behind the camera at the moment. We'll chat with him in just a bit. And again, we're going to talk about the lights over the sky of Niagara last night, about 6:45. There was also, we got a lot of stuff coming up on the program today, and we'll fill you in on everything that the grandmother scam. Have you heard that one? The latest, a terrible thing about people in Niagara and elsewhere being taken advantage of, and sometimes giving away their life savings or at least a lot of money because these scammers on telephones are getting more and more aggressive. We're going to be talking to someone whose relative was taken advantage of in that way, so that hopefully we can keep everybody informed and save some people from a lot of stress and a loss of money. So we're going to do that and a bunch of other things coming up. Super to be back. Glad to have you with us. We'll see you in 30 seconds. All right. And here we are. Boy, this feels good. This kind of feels like slipping on a nice pair of well-worn, well-fitted, aged jeans, because it's been a few weeks. Kevin Jack, ladies and gentlemen, on the what will be the right side of your screen, I hope. Oh, I got an itchy eye for some reason today. This proves it's live. Anyway, season 5, episode 5 of Niagara 411 Live with Sterry. Just super to be back in the saddle here for this Thursday. Now, we would normally do this on a Wednesday, but we're doing this on a Thursday because life being what it is, things get in the way, and sometimes it's a little bit more convenient to do things in a different way. Before we go any further, I want to thank Jessica Wilson. What a talented, lovely young lady that, and I'm sure you really appreciated watching her more than this face when she filled in over the last week or so, and just awesome. And thank you, Jessica. You did a fabulous job, and always appreciate you stepping up to fill in where we leave a blank. So thank you. Awesome work. Now, coming up at 12:20 today, I mentioned at the beginning that we're going to be talking about the latest grandparent scam. And man, just these people, I guess if it didn't work, they wouldn't keep doing it, but it has to make you wonder, how do people do this to other people? Philip Moreau is going to be joining us because we're going to be talking about this story that you're seeing on the screen right now. His 87-year-old grandmother was scammed out of $17,000 in cash in the last week, including a $10,000 loan to help get her grandson out of jail. He was never in jail. He was never arrested. It's a total scam. And what has set this story apart from previous style scams is these people say they're going to come to your home to pick up the money. This is starting to get very scary and threatening on a very personal, face-to-face level. So we're going to be talking to Philip Moreau about that, so that hopefully you can learn something and help pass this on to your loved ones and your relatives and friends, so that we can save other people from the same kind of stress and angst that this family put up with. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, the lights in the sky were reported by almost 1,000 people. We saw comments on Niagara 411. Hey, Nick, by the way, thanks again, always for your cooperation. Hi to Nick's mom. Cheers. Thanks for being here again. But there were at least 700 to 900 comments came through on Niagara 411 since last evening at about 6:45 or 7 o'clock about the fact that people saw lights in the sky. A lot of the comments came from the Welland area. There were some from Stony Creek, but basically all over. And what we have found is the fact that this is a very widespread phenomenon, and it might have been a fireball that came over the skies in the United States. To talk about this is Kevin Sutherland. There's one of the videos right there. That's the second video that Nick was able to put up on Niagara 411 of last evening's object in the sky over Niagara. Well, to talk about that, Scott Sutherland, our, I call him resident. He's not a resident here, but he kind of feels like a resident with the show. Meteorologist and science writer for the Weather Network. He's done a little bit of research on what happened last night. So if you want to find out more about what you saw and about what a bunch of other people saw and what happened last evening and where it came from, etc., Scott's going to be joining us at about 12:40 today on the program, and we'll delve into what exactly caused that light in the sky that a lot of people reported on last night. Susan Heaten is going to be joining us. She's an events coordinator for African Women Acting. They have an event coming up, and we're going to be speaking with her about that. David Green, St. Catharines, Niagara resident comic, is going to be showing up to talk about the events that they have coming up in the comic world here in Niagara. So that's sort of a quick thumbnail sketch of a lineup for the program today. And Kevin, are you with us back there? I know you're scrambling furiously to get all this stuff up. There's one of the videos. Now, I don't know if you can, right there in the left, it just pops up like a pinpoint on the left top quadrant of that screen. There, right there. Okay? That's the first video right there. That sort of flash, that off from the center of the screen off to the top left of your screen. That was the first video that Nick was able to put up on Niagara 411 from people that had seen this. A lot of people saw this in their cars, etc., so you're not always able to take a video of something like that, nor should you if you're driving your car. Anyway, and so, and people are saying, what is it? Well, your first inclination, of course, would be what we used to call shooting stars. Now, there's a graphic of the wide area in which reports came for that so-called, what we are referring to now, according to Scott from the Weather Network, a fireball sighting Wednesday evening. We hear that it was centered over Pennsylvania, because you see you've got sightings as far south as Virginia along near the eastern coast of the U.S., and then you walk up, you see all those areas, and then of course into Niagara and Hamilton and Mississauga, and even up in Kingston, there were a couple of sighting reports of this light object of some sort in the sky, and Niagara seems to be pretty much, if not in the center, certainly close to the center before you get to the periphery of sightings of this so-called fireball. We'll talk to Scott more about that. Also,
Lee, just want to hop in here with some more video footage that's coming out. I saw this actually last night. This was out of, I think, WIVB in Buffalo. So we're all familiar with Channel 4.
okay.
And there they have...
He weighs in. He is here. He is not a figment of my imagination.
They're kind of doing like trails, as you can see, the green lines and the red lines. And these are just from eyewitness reports saying, I was driving, I saw it going in this direction, that direction.
Yeah.
But as you see, the two maps kind of line up, right? They're both saying the same thing.
They are, yes.
And I want to get to more video that's just kind of flowing in. And I'll say from all corners, if this was, where'd you say, centered over Pennsylvania?
Well, that's what I heard. It appeared the American Meteorological Association or Society published an article today in which this graphic was included, and it said that it appears that the fireball was centered over the skies of Pennsylvania. That was sort of like ground zero, but I think it's a little bit too early to be definitive about that. You had something else there?
Yeah, here, I'll just throw a couple more up. I mean,
this is, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind, we are live, and this is live, and so it sometimes takes us a couple of minutes to put this thing together. So
here you can see that one. That's one of the better ones I've seen.
yeah, see across the top, so where the arrow is, coming from the top right quadrant of the screen down past that building.
Sorry, you'll see the phone go sideways here for a second.
Yeah, okay.
This is one of the ones that I saw as well.
Okay.
I didn't see much there, did you?
No, I didn't. No.
There it is, just briefly.
Where? I missed it. Oh, there it is.
Right underneath.
Under the street light.
Yeah, under the street light.
Can you play that again?
Yeah.
There it is. So we would call that, in the old days, when I was a kid, we'd call that a shooting star, which would be, in most cases, a meteor.
That one's clear as day, or I guess
Oh,
clear as
there's
night.
a good one right there. Or a meteorite, I guess, if you will. Scott will differentiate those terms.
I believe, Lee, a meteor becomes a meteorite
as it burns through the atmosphere.
Once it hits the ground.
Yeah.
I think it's a meteorite once it hits the ground.
Okay.
But we'll find out. I think we've had this discussion with him before.
We have had this discussion with Scott before. But there's another thing we're going to talk to him about, as it turns out. Actually, I think it's kind of a cool thing that we were able to, by total synchronicity or symbiosis, whatever you want to call it, serendipity, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, to move the show from yesterday to today, because there's a lot of stuff going on, including that light on the sky. But the other thing we're going to talk to Scott about is there's a moon landing happening today. The United States is landing a lander on the moon today. Unmanned, but it's the first time that the United States has put a lander on the moon since the era that we walked on the moon. Apollo mission, that's what I'm looking for. The Apollo series was the last time that North America has put anything on the moon. But prior to this, I was listening to a report today. Prior to this, 2 failed attempts to land something on the moon. Japan's, I laugh, I'm sorry, it cost millions of dollars. I don't mean to laugh, but it sounds kind of funny, really, because the Japan lander that was supposed to go down a couple of months ago landed upside down. So that's never good. And there was one before that. Was it India? I can't remember. But there have been 2 attempted moon landings of unmanned craft for scientific reasons go to the moon in the last few months. Both of those have failed. This one hopefully does not. It'll be the 3rd attempt, and hopefully this one does work. And there are some various nuances as to why we're doing this, why we're sending an unmanned spacecraft to the moon now, because isn't it a kind of a case of Well, we've been there, done that. We've been to the moon. What's the deal? I think it's probably just another one of those exploratory missions because the moon is a stop between here and Mars. That's my theory, but I don't know for sure. We'll find out from Scott when he joins us at about 20 to 1 today. So a lot of stuff going on over the last little while, and it's very, very cool to have you here. And speaking of cool, have we not had an amazing winter in the Niagara region? I'm starting to get a little bit scared, by the way, because at some point in time, just when we get complacent about, oh man, what a beautiful winter we're having, and it's warm and it's clear and we don't have any snow, I just have this terrible feeling like at some point in time we're going to get nailed. Like at some point in time we're going to get nailed. I hope not, but it's been good. Kevin, how have you been the last 2 or 3 weeks? You're looking fine. You don't look like you've aged since I saw you
I know,
last.
if anything, I think I won a couple of hours back. We spent a week in Florida. Our family did a lot of fun stuff. The weather down there, I think we hit the best Florida weather week so far of 2024 because we had 4 or 5 beach days in there. And then
there's been some sketchy weather in Florida, hasn't there?
Yeah, so mix in there a day at Legoland, which is the old Cypress Gardens.
Your kids must have loved that.
Oh, absolutely. They conquered the dragon and all the other roller
Because you're a
coasters
Lego
there.
family, right?
Absolutely. We got. I think everybody in a house with an 8 and a 10-year-old would be in a Lego house.
That's awesome.
And it was awesome. And one of their favorite Lego shows is Ninjago, and they had a big Ninjago set up there. So it was absolutely what I would call a perfect vacation. And then we're back. And of course, what you want is you want it to be blizzard and hellish in Niagara while you're gone, right? To make it worthwhile. But turns out that it was pretty balmy here as well.
While you're away, you want all of your friends here at home to be suffering.
And to be jealous.
Absolutely.
Be extremely jealous.
It didn't work out that way. While we were away, there was a couple of days here in Niagara, it was 17 degrees Celsius. It was golf weather back here.
Oh, absolutely. But it's nice to be back, and you were south as well, and that went good for you.
In the Dominican Republic, it's always, you can't beat the Caribbean. Sometimes you get unlucky and have some bad weather, but we had good weather. We were, I think 2 weeks away sometimes is a little too long. You kind of lose touch with reality, but it was good. Cannot complain. We were in an area in Puerto Plata where the cruise ships come in. And sometimes it is very surreal. It's like you're watching these massive cruise ships would come in and they'd go horizontal, and then they would actually back up. They would back up and turn around into the pier. Like you would back into a parking spot at Walmart. And it's like, how do they do that? A ship that's got like 8,000 people in it, how do they back up into a parking space? But they do it. I know there's computers and all the rest of it. It's still pretty fascinating to watch.
But either way, both of us are back,
landed
safely here in Niagara to, what's our high today? Another sunny 6-7 degrees or something like that. So, Lee, let's get right back to the Niagara stuff. And this disturbed everybody when Nick posted it a couple of days ago.
Yeah. St. Catharines Senior out $17,000 after a grandparent scam. Now, we've heard of the grandparent scams before, where there would be a telephone call and say, "Hi, Grandma. It's Steve. I got a bit of a problem. I'm in Portugal or wherever, and I got a problem, and I need you to send me some money." And then, if people fall for it, then that happens. This is an entirely different twist on that story, and again, diabolical but brilliant, I guess, in its genesis. With us is Philip Moreau, whose grandmother was a victim of just one such scam. Hey, Philip, how you doing today?
Good, Lee. It's nice of you to have me on today.
Oh, we're so pleased to have you.
Thank you. As luck would have it, I was too in Cuba last week, and I just got home on Wednesday. And then a couple days later, I got a disturbing phone call from my grandmother, who couldn't believe she was talking to me because she was under the impression that I was in a holding cell with the Niagara Regional Police. She'd been given a badge number, a case number, and I was being held on drugs and weapon charges.
Wow.
And I guess there was a car accident. When the cops showed up, they arrested me. They found drugs, weapons in the car.
They went
This was the
through.
phone
They went
call.
through all this with her over the phone.
They went all this over the phone, and she wouldn't be my go-to contact. She's my grandmother, right? She's not my wife. She's not my kids. She's not my parents. And they go after the grandparents. They said that I said she was the one that I trusted the most, not to let the rest of my family know that I was in trouble.
Wow.
So therefore, I was calling her and reaching out to her because she'd keep my problems secret and she'd help me.
Wow. These people
And
are.
sure enough,
These people are pretty good, aren't they?
they know what they're doing. They have it down to a fine science. I've actually been in contact with 4 or 5 other people that have been in the past couple of days, 3-4 days, that they've been their elderly relatives have been contacted as well, and pursued to get money out of.
So Philip, how did it process from there? So your grandmother, and she was 80. She is 87
Today
years
is her
old.
87th birthday.
Wow. Okay. So here's this elderly lady receives a call out of the blue. She would have really no reason to think that it's a scam because somebody of that age, frankly, people of that generation were taught to trust people, especially people from law enforcement, because that's that whole respect thing for authority in that demographic. So we can understand that. So after this pitch was made, what happened then?
Well, she was allowed to talk to a man they had there that was impersonating me. I think they used a little bit of a reverse information get on her, where they let her know that they had her grandson, and she kind of threw my name out there. And when after my name was thrown out there, the cat was out of the bag, and they went with my name. So they said that they had her grandson Philip here with them, and he'd like to say a few things. And the man they had with them proceeded to beg, and somehow she thought it was my voice. She was fooled. She's 87. She's not gullible, but in this instance, they got her.
Okay, so once they sort of reeled her in and she was sold on this situation, what was the next step of the pitch?
Well, this is where it gets a little more disturbing. Okay, they said that they needed bail money if she wanted to get me out of jail.
Right.
And the delivery method was what struck me as very strange. They met her on my parents' street where she lives, in front of the neighbor's house, as to not bring her in front of her own house, maybe in case there's surveillance in front of the house.
Right.
They met her down the street a couple houses on foot, and they said they didn't want to park the court vehicle in front of her house
because they didn't want to embarrass her.
Right.
Right.
Clever.
Very clever. Okay, so in what form did she give them this? Not a lot of people have $17,000 hanging around.
No, and this is what scares me a little bit. She asked my father, who she lives with, to take her to the bank. Didn't tell him why. It's his mother-in-law. It's not really any of his business why she needs to go to the bank.
Okay.
So he took her to the bank, and the bank questioned her a few times, made her sign a piece of paper, but then let her take that money out of the bank.
In cash?
In cash.
Okay. All right. So then she goes back home after going to the bank. And how was the communication continuing between these crooks and her? Was it a cell phone call or text, or how was that working?
She doesn't use. She has a landline, so they contacted her landline. They gave her a phone number to contact back, which I'm sure was a burner phone, of a disposable phone of some kind.
Okay.
And they gave her the case number, the badge number, all made up. But if they have a bunch of people on the hook, on the line, then the badge number and the case number might be useful to them, so they can find out which senior citizen they have on the line.
So with all due respect, and I know you mentioned that it's really none of your dad's business, but was he suspicious at all of this? Because it is a little irregular.
He assumed that he didn't know what she was there for. He didn't go into the bank with her. He assumed that she was either there to do some of her own daily banking, because she's not big on the bank cards.
Okay.
Or that she might have been there to take out a couple $100 to help out one of her grandchildren.
All right. So he never heard her on the phone with these people.
No. She lives in a basement apartment.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So
yeah, she's very self-sufficient.
So now she does hand the money over. What is the part? Sorry, let me back up a little bit. What is the part about the loan? There's the $17,000 cash, but there was something about a loan involved here?
This was a two-day stretch. They came to the house 2 days in a row. They didn't feel like they got enough money from her the first day.
Wow.
Where she gave them all the cash that she had.
Yeah.
And that was $7,000. And then the next day, she went to the bank and she withdrew everything from her savings, and then she took $7,000 off of her line of credit. So wow. it's not quite a loan; it's $7,000 off her line of credit.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, okay, now I understand. And so they met her again in person on her street.
2 days, two different people. While she was on the phone with one, the other met up with her. So it's a two-man operation. Maybe one is scoping out the area to make sure everything's clear, and the other picks up the money.
All right. So, this is so sad. My heart's breaking for your grandmother right now. It's just horrible. And
the whole family is having a hard time wrapping their head around it.
Well, I think anybody watching this would have a hard time wrapping their head around it. And the initial reaction is, and I realize this, and I'm going to get that elephant out of the room. The initial reaction is, how could anybody be so gullible as to believe this? Well, these people, as we talked about before, they're very good at what they do. And if they find somebody that they believe is vulnerable, they get even better at what they do. So there, but as they say, for the grace of God, go us. This could happen to anybody. So no shade cast on your grandmother at all, but this is just horrible. So now how did 2 days go by, she's given this cash over, she's taken line of credit, loans, etc. And so how does this evolve from there? How do you all find out that she's been taken advantage of?
Well, they placed her under a gag order.
They who?
And I don't understand in any capacity how, our police officers would ever place somebody giving bail money to them under a gag order. That is not something that would happen.
Well, first of all, you don't give bail money to the police.
Right.
Yeah.
But, for the sake of fooling a senior, you might.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so my niece was over at her great-grandmother's house, my grandmother's house, having a conversation with my grandmother, and she mentioned to my grandmother that her son's grandmother on the other side of the family had just received a phone call about her son being captured by the police and that they wanted money. But she knew right away it was a scam.
Okay.
And hung up on them.
Right.
And as soon as my grandmother heard this, all the puzzle pieces started getting put together in her head.
Okay.
She left the room and called my phone right away. And I wish she would have done this instantly, because I was sitting on my couch watching TV or something along those lines. And when she called me, you could hear the fear in her voice. And I did not understand what she was talking about. I thought she thought maybe I got detained in Cuba or
wow,
or there was some other problem. I didn't think that she had been scammed out of 17,000 and was in tears talking to me on the phone. And she wasn't just in fear about the 17,000. She was afraid these two men, because they know where she lives now, that they're going to be.
Wow.
It's frightening. And to be a senior in that position, it has to be a lot more frightening.
I was going to say, that's where I was going to go next. How is your grandma? How is she doing? Because, boy,
well, I think she's doing a little better today than she was 3 days ago. 3 days ago, she was under a gag order. Her grandson was in custody, about to be charged on drugs and weapons charges. She was in a really bad place. And when she called me, you could hear that bad place transcend through our phone call.
And Philip, I mean, and even after all of the dust is settled and she realizes that she was the victim of scam artists and con artists, she must feel horrible about herself. That's got to be a hard thing.
It's got to be hard. I imagine sleeping at night, and that would be the only thing going through my mind, over and over and over again, is, how much of a fool you are.
Yeah.
How could this happen to me?
Yeah.
I thought I was smart.
Wow. So, okay, and we did put the graphic up a few minutes ago on the screen, where there is a GoFundMe page up there for concerned citizens or empathetic citizens in Niagara or elsewhere to help defray the losses that your grandmother incurred as
we would love to get her at least out of debt. It would be nice to top her savings back up. But if we could just get her out of debt, because she lives on an income provided by the government that most seniors barely get by on.
Yeah, well, our current figures, Philip, show that out of the $17,000 goal, there's about $8,300 that has been raised. So it's heading towards a point.
Well, that's news to me. That's good. I didn't know it got that high.
Yeah, well, that's where we are right now as far as our current stats are concerned.
I just smiled a little, I think. That made me pretty happy. So today is her birthday. We are going over there later today, and we're planning on surprising her with whatever is in the bank when we get there.
What's her first name?
First name is Bev.
Bev? All right.
Yes.
Hopefully Bev sees this interview, and I hope we can pass along the sentiment that you shouldn't feel badly about yourself, because a lot of people a lot younger and a lot more experienced also get taken advantage of by these very effective con artists. And please feel better about yourself, because it's okay. People find themselves in some crazy situations, and I just hope she's okay going forward. I really do.
Well, we're doing our best to support her through this. Give her as much love as we can, and I really hope that she's okay too.
Can you offer, Philip, before we send you on your way today, can you offer any advice for people who have family members that are potentially vulnerable? What are the signs? What do we look out for? What do we do?
Well, nobody is going to be calling you and asking you money for anything. So warn your grandparents, warn your parents if they're older, even if they're not that old. Warn people that you think might be vulnerable to a scam like this. Nobody's going to call you over the phone and tell you they need money because a relative is in trouble somewhere. And if they do, fact check it. There's no such thing as a gag order like by the police. The police don't put you under a gag order. They're supposed to be above the table. Just keep an eye on your grandparents and your seniors in your life, because this could happen to anyone.
I know this was something that she thought was coming from the Niagara Regional Police Service, like a local police service, not some sort of international group like we've heard of before. Have the local authorities weighed in on this at all, or is it part of an investigation? What kind of feedback have you received from them?
It is part of an investigation. It is part of an investigation, but they're somewhat lost on her specific cases because she gave them all the money in cash. They have no photo evidence. They have no phone call traces because the phone that they used was not a real phone. She was under the gag order, so they couldn't do anything in real time.
Right.
The scammers did call back on Tuesday, attempting a third go at it.
Get out.
They did. I'm not going to say that my grandmother dropped the ball, but I think that she just wanted to let them know that she was onto them, where she probably could have led them along on her own scam.
And had somebody meet them in the street.
Little sting operation, right?
Yeah. Wow.
But,
Boy,
she clued them in. They ran.
I'll bet you'd love to get your hands on these guys.
I would love to get a bunch of people's hands on them. I'd let you in on it too, Lee.
Wow. Philip, thank you very much for coming on and telling the story. And again, our best thoughts go to your grandmother, and I hope she fully psychologically and emotionally recovers from this, because for someone of that age to have to go through that kind of traumatic experience and then have to try to recover from their own sense of self-esteem, that's got to be a tough road to hoe, as they say. And boy, we wish her and your family the best.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, thanks, Philip Moreau. Man, Kevin, it just makes you so angry to hear these stories. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on Season 5 and Episode 5 of Niagara 411 Live with Lee Sterry. We are fueled by Gales Gas Bars Limited. As per always, it is your one-stop shop for all things petroleum in the Niagara region. This is a busy time of year. Now, it's been a little bit easier for a lot of people around Niagara because of the fact that our winter hasn't been that tough. But it is still one of those ongoing commitments that Gales has fuel oil, home oil, heating oil, all those things, as well as commercial petroleum products for your automobiles and your machinery at home and your power tools and all that stuff. That one-stop shop for all of your gas and petroleum needs. Gales.ca is the place to go. And you want to join the rewards program, which benefits you even more, by all means, go to Gales.ca. Verge Insurance Group, we thank you for sticking with us as well for your auto, home, business, or life insurance needs. Niagara born and bred company, as all of our sponsors are and have been around Niagara for a long time, as you see, since 1953, older than I am, believe it or not. And that's like being older than dirt. They've been around here for a long time. So to Mark Shirk and gang, thank you very much for your continued support of this program. Ace Alignment, also specializing in wheel alignments and brakes and suspensions and all things to do with your automotive needs, including inspections and MTO things, etc. Owner-operator Janice Uhl-Pretty, thank you very much for continuing to support the program. Head mechanic Darren Miller, senior mechanic Matt Crompton. Those are the guys that are ready, willing, and more than able to look after all of your automotive needs. They're on North Street. It's kind of a little street that's tucked behind the new police station. As a matter of fact, it's right at the corner of Welland and Geneva. North Street runs right behind there, and stop in and see them if you have any needs. Very, very centrally located here in the downtown area of St. Catharines. And our newest sponsor is Equal Wellness Services, and just thrilled to death to have these folks online. Audrey is the proprietor. She is the foot nurse. We always knew her as the foot nurse, but she has expanded her business to just incredible things that they do. Obviously pleased to offer high quality nursing foot care, including foot care for diabetes sufferers. as well as cystoscope skin testing, etc. I'm just referring here now to a flyer: nursing foot care, skin assessment, osteopathy. I know I'd screw that word up. Osteopathy, compression wear. You know, some of those incredibly important socks and things, of course, that you need. All of these various and sundry services they offer. As a matter of fact, I'm a customer of Audrey Wall, the foot nurse, and every 6 weeks I'm in there to get my feet looked after, and man, it's nice. It looks good. All right, so so we appreciate Equal Wellness Services. With us on the program, we come back now to the lights in the sky, as we'll call this segment. Last evening, about 6:45, the reports started to come into Niagara 411 in the fact that there was a light in the sky. Is it a meteor? You see that post right now in Niagara 411. One of the early posts, stationary camera captures meteor. Well, is it a meteor? Is it not? Sightings around Niagara, a lot of them in the Welland area, some as far as away as Stony Creek. And so I reached out this morning to our resident consultant, as I like to call him, with regard to all things astronomical and meteorological and science-wise in the skies, Scott Sutherland, science writer as well as meteorologist with the Weather Network. Hey, Scott, how you doing today, pal?
Doing really good, Lee. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for responding so quickly to me today. I know I was sitting over my coffee and I started reading about this stuff, and I thought I know it's only 8 o'clock in the morning, but I got to reach out to Scott and see what's going on. So that's why we're here. So let's go back. Let's go back to last evening at 6:45.
Right.
What's going on?
We had a little visitor from space. Not sure how big it was. Not too big, not big enough to be anything worried about. But it seems as though, based on all the eyewitness reports, that a reasonably sized meteoroid, maybe something the size of a baseball, maybe a little bit larger than that, up to maybe about like a basketball or something, plunged into Earth's atmosphere, created a maybe 100-kilometer long streak across western Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And because of the clear skies and the fact that this happened roughly 60 to 30 kilometers up, like it started at 60 kilometers up and it plunged into about 35, 36 kilometers up, it was seen for hundreds of kilometers around. People as far away as Kingston and Detroit saw it, all the way down in Virginia. But the concentrations were around Buffalo and Niagara, and down in Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, and so forth, the large metropolitan areas.
So the trajectory then would have been, these things usually come in on an angle, right? So as they go through the atmosphere, they start to burn up, which is what causes the fireball. So the trajectory the trajectory would have been over through Pennsylvania, sort of in toward this area.
Actually, it was almost exactly, sort of like south or west southwest to east northeast. So it was almost somewhere. It was actually almost kind of parallel to the Niagara Peninsula. So it was almost like if you were looking straight towards Lake Erie, it would have just passed right across your view, almost straight across your view.
Okay.
But yeah, the light is produced by the pressure, the immense pressure of these things coming into the atmosphere. It's traveling like 50,000 kilometers an hour when it hit the atmosphere.
So Kevin and I talked about this earlier, and I know we've done this before, but differentiate for us what's the difference between a meteor and a meteorite.
Right. Oh, and hi, Kevin, by the way. When it's in space, it's a meteoroid, or if it's big enough, like maybe bigger than a meter or so, it's an asteroid.
Okay.
When it hits the atmosphere, it produces a meteor, which is the bright flash of light.
All right.
And if any pieces of that original meteoroid hit the ground and they're found, those are meteorites.
Okay. So we've got like a 3-level definition here. We got meteoroid out in space, meteor through the atmosphere, meteorite on the ground.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So It's not an unusual occurrence. These things probably happen on a regular basis. It's just not that everybody sees them. However,
Right.
what sort of investigation continues? I know you sent me something, including that graphic we had up there with the various people and where they saw it from the American Meteorological Association or Society. So, what sort of follow-up investigations take place in a situation like this?
Well, the American Meteor Society, the AMS, they collect reports. So this is all just, I saw something.
Right.
I go onto their website. I say it from my perspective, and here in Hamilton, it traveled from west to east. It took this many seconds long. Did I hear any sounds associated with it? Did it fragment in the process of burning up, and so forth? And then they compile these numbers, and there's been 225 sightings so far, or reports at least, put on their website. And their system compiles all of those, and then based upon all of those individual reports, it says this is the likely trajectory. It sort of, all the arrows point to these areas, and then it started here. All of them crossed at that point, and then ended here. So it was this long, and it is a guess, because we are not exact measuring devices.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but it's a reasonable guess.
Well, I know sorry, cut you off. I'll let you continue in a second.
Go ahead.
Because I know as of this morning on Niagara 411, there were like 645 comments. At the point I contacted you this morning, we were going well over 700 comments about people that had seen this thing here in Niagara. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that one thing I point out when I write about these things is that the number of reports on the AMS site are only a tiny, tiny fraction of the number of people who actually saw this thing, because not everybody knows about this site to report it on, right? And also, not everybody is motivated to do so. They look up and they go, "Holy cow, that was amazing! All right, I'm with my life," and then that's it, right? And it's something that was amazing to see, but they don't feel any reason to report it, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Nothing against that. So yeah, I mean, there are probably thousands of people, like the huge concentrations of people around the Washington D.C. area that saw this, and in Buffalo.
Right.
That 225, maybe 1% of the number of people who actually saw this.
As you say, and it's probably only because that they know this association or society exists, and most of us don't.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a good piece of information for our viewers, because they can know now to go to the American Meteorological Society site.
American Meteor Society.
Meteor Society, sorry. American Meteor
just to be sure.
Society, because there's a big difference.
Yep.
American Meteor Society. You can go to their site, and if you see something in the sky, you can go there, and chances are you can find out a little bit more information about what you've seen.
Yeah, and if you record it, if you've recorded it on your phone, or if you've recorded it via dash cam or your doorbell cam, you can upload those videos too, and that helps them as well for just documenting the event.
So now, will we ever find out? Do you think that we end up with a meteorite at the end of this, or do you think something that size would probably burn up before it hit the ground?
Well, this has kind of been something that I've been really fascinated with over the years, because there's some meteor scientists at the University of Western Ontario in London that concentrate on this sort of information.
Right.
Dennis Vida is one of the guys that works there, and he runs the Global Meteor Network. So this is they want to spread around and have cameras pretty much everywhere, all pointed up at the sky, so that no meteor is ever missed. So they want to document all meteors that they can see, or possibly see.
Okay.
And in talking with him, he talks about how large these things can be is dependent on the brightness and the speed and all of this sort of thing. But basically, I'm trying to get to my point here. What was the question again?
The question was, the question was, will we ever be able to determine whether we end up with a meteorite, or will it have all burned up in the atmosphere?
Right. So the meteorites are usually found from slow-moving meteors.
Okay.
So if it exceeds a certain speed, and I can't remember the number now, but the thing is going so fast, it's like hitting a brick wall when it hits the atmosphere.
Yeah. So
it creates that very brief flash of light, and then it disintegrates. Now, this one seemed to me, as a non-expert of this field, that it may have been going slow enough, and it was bright enough that it was probably large enough that at least something hit the ground.
okay.
The question then becomes, exactly where would that have fallen?
Where did that happen? Yeah.
Right. And one of the interesting things, the mix, the meteor science.
We had a freeze.
That's too badly.
Okay.
Stuff that's happening much, much higher up in the atmosphere from there. But a nice little mix of that is that meteorological radar, especially Doppler radar, can detect the falling fragments. So if there's Doppler radar in the Pennsylvania area, and I'm absolutely sure there is.
I know there is. I've talked to meteorologists from that area before, so I know there is.
Exactly. So their Doppler radar may have possibly picked up the fragments falling towards the ground. And if that's the case, then meteorite hunters could use that data to go find them.
What would they look like? Would they look like just a hunk of rock?
It's very usually, unless there was a case just recently where meteorites fell in Germany, where the meteorites were very, very different. They were very rare type that did not look like normal meteorites. They kind of looked like snowy, like something you would find on Earth, but they were a rare type of meteorite. In the most cases, though, it'll be covered in a very thin, possibly glossy black coating that's caused by the outer surface being burned by that intense heat pressure.
Sure. Yeah.
They will feel heavier than they look. So a small rock will actually have a little bit more weight to it than
they're so
usually.
dense.
Yeah, there's a high metal content usually for these, and they'll be magnetic. So a good way to tell is to take a magnet out and just briefly does it stick to it. So look for black rocks, and if there's snow on the ground, that'll be much, much easier to find them.
Sure.
But look for these black rocks, and then just test them very quickly with a magnet. We're sort of leaning away from that now because the magnetic field of meteorites might be an interesting way of studying them.
I have so many questions. Before we get on to one thing, before we let you go, because unfortunately I have a lineup here, but this is so fascinating. Anytime
I love this stuff.
Anytime this happens in real time, it's just great to be able to talk about it. The meteoroids. So there's a meteoroid out there, and it's going to become a meteor and then a meteorite, maybe, or whatever, if it goes out of the orbit and through the atmosphere and blah blah and all that stuff. So what is the source of the original meteoroid? Is it a chip off an asteroid? Is it just a hunk of lazy space rock that lost its way? What is it?
It could be either, really. From the NASA website, they have a little preliminary orbit based upon the trajectory of the asteroid, and it looked like it came from the inner asteroid belt. Now, was this just a tiny baseball or basketball-sized meteoroid that's been orbiting the sun for billions of years? Who knows? Okay. It may have been a piece of a larger object that got broken off. That's also possible. We never know until we find the meteorites to know for sure.
Wow. All right, let's flash forward to today for a couple of minutes.
Oh, yes.
Well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Intuitive Machines lunar landing. That's what you wanted to talk about, wasn't it?
It is. Yeah. There is going to be a lunar landing today. It'll be the third. It'll be the third one attempted this year, or over the last number of months. One was the first private mission. One was by Japan. Who was the other one? India. India. And so today's unmanned lunar landing is supposed to be near the southern pole of the moon. Correct?
Yeah, that's the main focus right now.
Yeah.
Japan landed there, or it was India, had a successful landing. and then Japan.
Well, Japan landed upside down.
Mostly successful landing. Still functioned, which is amazing that it landed upside down and it's still working.
But today,
that's crazy.
This very day, even as we speak, there's a lunar lander from the United States preparing to come to rest on the moon. Why are we doing this?
In preparation for the Artemis missions. Artemis 2 launches next year, late next year probably, in November,
Which is what?
I think. That's the first crewed mission, so it'll have 4 people on board, that's going to go to the moon, circle around, and come back. It's sort of like the Apollo 8 allegory mission.
Okay, so am I right in the fact that this is preparation for going to Mars?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
The year after Artemis 2 is Artemis 3. Artemis 3 will put people on the moon at the South Pole. And then Artemis 4 will be the first delivery of the Lunar Gateway Station module. And that will eventually lead to Mars in 2030.
What do we want to learn? What do they want to learn from this mission? I mean, a lot of people I know are out there saying, you're spending millions of dollars on this, but we've been to the moon, been there, done that, gone around, landed, had people walk on it, one small step, all that stuff. So what are we doing this for? What's the point?
Water. And it's water for the use in future space missions. So the lunar South Pole has all these craters that are perpetually dark. No sunlight ever touches them. And their satellites have detected water in those craters. Now it's ice, but first they have to find out, is it actual chunks of ice? Is it glaciers under the surface that can be dug up and used directly for water? Or is it locked in minerals? If it's the former, that is an amazing resource for the future of space exploration. Okay. And then we can put people in orbit around the moon. We can build rockets there. We can use that for fuel. We can use that for air and drinking water. And we can send people to Mars from the moon, which is a much, much easier launch than it is from Earth because there's less gravity to overcome. If we want to put permanent base on the moon, that water resource again becomes immensely valuable because we don't have to ship water in this very valuable, very, very expensive way, both gravitationally and financially, from Earth. So if they can find these water deposits, and that's what most of these missions are like, sort of stepping stones, right?
Yeah.
So each one is sort of like, has a different set of instruments, has a different primary mission, but the basic idea is to go to that South Pole region, find out if there's water resources there, and if we can use it, that will push our space exploration much, much farther going in the near future.
Scott, I think we're going to have one Canadian on that first Artemis trip, are we not?
Yep. Jeremy Hansen is flying around the moon late next year.
Okay.
And then I don't know if we'll have a Canadian on the Artemis missions after that, but they haven't announced anything yet, so who knows? All
right, well, when next we speak, unless something untoward happens like what happened last night, I would assume the next time we speak is going to be as we get closer to the solar eclipse coming up in April, because it is now becoming even bigger and bigger world news that Niagara is going to be the premier viewing spot for the solar eclipse coming up in April.
Yep.
So
and I am so hoping for clear skies.
There are going to be people, thousands of people from all over the world collecting here in Niagara in April. I know it.
Yep, and it's going to be exciting.
Going to be cool. Scott Sutherland, meteorologist as well as a science writer for the Weather Network, sort of our resident astronomy dude. Thank you very much for being here and for and again on short notice for coming on the program. You have yourself a great day, all right?
Yeah, you too. If anybody wants any more information about the meteor, look for my article on theweathernetwork.com.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Have a good one. See you, Kevin.
Yeah, see you, Scott. And just to let you know, Lee, that they are expecting touchdown. This is from NASA, about 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time today.
All right. So
and there you go. You can go to YouTube and follow the live feed.
Yes, you can do that. Anytime NASA does something like that, they have availability for you to go on and watch whatever it is they're doing. So it actually was rather serendipitous that we were able to move the program from yesterday to today because it gave us a lot to talk about. that's happening even as we speak. Again, I want to thank Gales Gas Bars Limited for being our fueling sponsor here on the program. Been with us since the inception, and we just love to have you here. Virgin Insurance Group as well for all of your insurance group. For all of your insurance needs, home, auto, personal, life insurance, etc. Broker that will find you the best prices for whatever it is that you need. Ace Alignment for all of your automotive needs, specializing in wheel alignments and brakes and suspensions. And you can get your inspections, MTO inspections and certifications done there as well. Equal Wellness Services, Audrey Wall, the foot nurse, and expanding her business. Thank you very much for being part of our family here. Champions of Healthcare for All. That is their mantra. So, Kevin, do we have Susan in the wings?
No, but we are juggling things up a little bit. We got David Green from the Garden City Comedy Festival just sticking by. And then I know after, we're going to kind of wrap up a story that we talked about in October. And it was a tragic story. We're
really trying to find time to do this because Kevin and I did follow this story up right from the very beginning, and we had a long chat about it earlier today. It involves a show that a story, that you might want to call, was it Death by Cop? Meaning, was there someone that was involved in an altercation here in Niagara that wanted to off himself, to use the cool lingo, by being shot and killed by police? Well, he ended up being shot and killed by police of the Niagara Regional Police Service. And anytime these kinds of altercations take place, SIU, the Special Investigations Unit of Ontario Police Services, gets involved. A report was just released this week after an investigation into that shooting of a man armed with a knife, which is always like never bring a knife to a gunfight, that old expression. Well, this guy did, and it, again, proved the adage, never bring a knife to a gunfight, because he's dead after being shot 17 times by 2 police officers. And the investigation results were just released this week. So we wanted to touch on that.
But therein, Lee, to me, lies the question. 17 times. This guy got shot 17 times.
By 2 officers.
By going after the cops.
2.5 seconds.
With a steak knife.
Yeah.
It seems like an overreaction, but when you read the SIU report...
It gives much... Pardon the pun of steak knife, food for thought.
Yeah. Totally different perspective after I read the report. At first, if I told you that, guy got shot 17 times, shot and killed by 2 police officers. He was armed with a steak knife. That was up on Arthur Street in St. Catharines.
Yeah. There, Arthur around Cindy in that area. Now, there are various stories like these that have come our way over the years. Remember the very, very famous story about the man that was shot and killed coming out of a school bus in Toronto by police officers, and there was great investigation and great hoopla and great angst over why does someone shoot somebody that's coming out of a school bus that's holding a knife or a hatchet or whatever it was. So, but there are always nuances, there are always caveats to these stories, and this investigation report that we're talking about goes to exactly the question that Kevin just brought up is, okay, man in stressful situation, armed with steak knife, like something you'd have in your kitchen, shot by police 17 times in 2.5 seconds. Again, overkill or not? Well, the police were ruled justified in their actions. But again, it goes a little bit deeper than that. Garden City Comedy Festival is coming up, and we're going to touch on that before we end the program and just kind of take a shovel to that story before we go. Garden City Comedy Festival coming up. It's a celebration of all things funny in Niagara, and it's bloomin' funny, eh? David Green is well known in comedy circles, not just in Niagara, but across the country and internationally as well. But in Niagara, definitely, there it is, the face of Niagara comedy right there. That's a big face. Here, I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Sorry, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I'm good. I got to warn you, though. I am armed with a spoon, so you better watch out. You better back up. I've got a spoon. I'm not afraid to use it.
I have no firearms in the vicinity, so you're okay.
Good.
And I'm totally unaware of your location, so you're safe.
Yeah.
How you been, David? How's the family? You got two little
I'm
kitties?
good, yeah. Yeah, they're good. They're great. We just got back from the Canadian Midway arcade this morning, so that was fun.
All right. Yeah. How old are your girls now?
18 months and 3.5.
All right. Fabulous ages to keep you awake still at night.
Yeah. Can you see the bags under the eyes? Yeah.
So your role, as I would kind of like to call it, is Niagara's comic ambassador, because I don't know anybody that promotes comedy in Niagara more often or more thoroughly than you do, and kudos to you for that. What's going on now? What are we talking about today?
So what I'm here's a request from my friend Sherry Hawkins, who is a huge part of the Niagara community, running events and promoting events in Niagara, and she is organizing the inaugural Niagara Mental Health Fair, which has been in the works for a couple of years to be at the new Exchange building in Niagara Falls. And she asked us to put together a family-friendly comedy show.
All right.
On Saturday, March 23rd.
Okay. So tell us quickly about the lineup. What's going on?
Yeah, so it'll be family-friendly, so kids are invited too. So it'll be Joel Van Vliet will be the host, who's an awesome local Niagara host. Host shows down at Camp Cataract, at Marte Cafe, and all around. We've got Rebecca Hardy, another talented performer. We're stacked with all local talent. We figured finally the Exchange building's open, brand new, so we'd want to celebrate local Niagara talent.
Sure.
So we have Rebecca Hardy on the show is hilarious. We also have talented magician Anthony Linden, who's a very funny comedy magician, and then headliner David Green will be closing out the show.
Who's that guy?
I don't know. I've heard of him. Some I don't know. I've heard about him, but I don't know much about him.
I was throwing some puns around earlier, and I guess I shouldn't have done that in the face of the king of the pun. That's that's sort of the heart and soul of where your humor came from. I remember watching you for the first time I saw you ages ago. So Saturday, March the 3rd. How much are the tickets to get in?
March 23rd, and it's $15.
March 23rd, $15. And do we do that online? Do we buy them at the door? What's the deal?
Yeah, you can. There may be some available at the door. We'd like to sell out beforehand, but you can go to thebestmedicine.eventbrite.com. Is where you can find all the tickets. Or if you go to Garden City Comedy Festival Facebook or Instagram pages, all the info and details will be on there as well. All
right. You're hardest working man in comedy showbiz in Niagara, that is for sure. David, congratulations on yet another event coming up. Thank you, Sherry, for promoting this and putting us in touch with Dave. You guys have a great job and raise a lot of money for mental health here in Niagara, all right?
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Take care, David. Bye. Okay, African Women Acting is an organization we introduced you to a few months ago when we had a young lady on to tell us exactly what it was all about. Well, we're following up on that conversation right now with Susan Heaten. She is the events coordinator for African Women Acting, and this is Black History Month, so it dovetails very well into the topic here right now. And as you see, their mantra, their mission is to empower women and African cultural heritage through African arts and female actors. So there is a Black Women in Leadership convention. Is that what I want to tell you? I don't know if it's a convention. Conference, perhaps, is a better word for it. Well, we'll let Susan tell us. Susan Heaten joins us. Hey, Susan, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I couldn't be better, and we're happier to have you than you are to have us. So welcome to the program.
Great.
Before we go ahead with the actual event, fill us in just once again for those people that might not be familiar and missed our original program about this. Tell us what African Women in Acting is.
Absolutely. So African Women Acting, short for AWA, is an organization that empowers women through the arts. And it encourages artists to be artist entrepreneurs, and teaches and it educates and help artists become entrepreneurs in their own rights. And although we are focused on women because it's African women acting,
Sure.
no one's excluded. Men are welcome. So anybody who is an artist, visual artist, singers, performing arts is welcome to come. We do have 2 locations. One is downtown Toronto, which is the head office, but locally here in Niagara with us, we do have a Niagara branch, which is on Queen Street, 437 Queen Street, and is very active. And very active in the community.
How long has this organization been in existence?
So the organization itself has been around since 2011. It was created by Sonia Ime, who is an active woman herself. She is a singer and a performer and an activist. And she started it 2011, but it was ran by someone else. And then from Toronto, the youth of Niagara actually asked her to bring it to Niagara, and she did.
Now, the answer to this question might be painfully obvious, but sometimes that's my job. I ask simple questions for painfully obvious answers, but sometimes people want to know this. Why is there a need for an organization in 2024 such as African women acting? How important is that need today, in your opinion?
Extremely important. So with everything, first of all, the arts is important. And sometimes people kind of disregards the arts and saying, hey, go back to that, oh, I'm broke artist working. People need to be able to survive on their craft. And to have professional representation or to be educated in your craft is very, very important. And what the organization realized is that there's a lack of organization. There's no home, so to speak, that someone can come and say, listen, I need some development, and can get that development and can get that mentorship.
Sometimes I know, especially in a circle like I'm a middle-aged white guy. So often people accuse people of my ilk of not really being in touch with the needs of society today. So like we're the last people that are allowed to have an opinion because, well, it really doesn't count. You're an old white guy, right? So, and a lot of people in society today think of the fact that the African American or African North American community has come so far that they no longer need to be a group of focus. And yet, every time the more I turn around is the fact that while we as a society have come a long way, we're still not there. We got a long way to go.
I completely agree with that statement. So we've come a long way, no doubt. However, there are still things that are systematic that will hold back a person of color. And while we don't think about it, because we don't want to, as Canadians, we don't want to think about it a lot just because we're a very diplomatic and very polite society.
But we should think about
it. Exactly. It's not as blatant as it is in other parts of the world, i.e. our neighbors to the south sometimes.
So tell us, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm saying it's there. The systematic racism is there, and the only way to overcome it is education.
Tell us about the Black Women in Leadership event you have coming up.
Absolutely. So Black Women in Leadership is actually very community oriented. The women that are being exhibited are from our community right here, local Niagara and St. Catharines. And they've been doing some great work. I've had the pleasure of working with very, very closely with 2 of those women. They teach over the summer last year. AWA also does a youth programming where they teach youth for the summer, how to do jobs, training, hands-on work. And these women were so efficient. They came in, they taught sewing, they taught cooking, just life lessons that some children are not getting. Very simple things that we might take for granted. These women, so all the women are women over 55. So it's the older women in the community, but they were instrumental in passing on knowledge that only they can pass on to these young children that were mentored last summer especially.
Okay. So it's February 24th, which is not too long from now. It's this Saturday, 4 to 7 p.m. At your headquarters, at your office on Queen Street in Niagara Falls. All right.
Absolutely.
thank you, Susan, for joining us, and congratulations on the work you do. And we hope the Women in Leadership, Black Women in Leadership event is a success for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing everybody there.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
There you go. Bye. All right. So here we are, firmly ensconced in the lovely Fiddler's Poorhouse at 149 St. Paul Street in St. Catharines. Kevin Jack and WeeStreem is the driving force behind this program. Kevin's the executive producer. He is the founder of the concept of this show, and we've been running for what, 5 years now? 4 years? Four seasons? Well, 5 seasons.
Gosh,
but how many years?
I think that's 5 years.
This is season 5.
Yeah, I think that's 5 years.
And before we even started naming, we were going at this before we even started naming seasons.
Yeah.
We didn't know there would be more than one season.
No, we got to a second year, and I'm like, I think we're in season 2 now.
Okay.
I guess as we flip the calendar.
Yeah. So here we are, and I want to thank Philip Moreau, who was here earlier to talk about the terrible scam that his grandmother was put through. And if you weren't here for that interview, go back earlier, or we'll be putting up, in case you missed it, pieces on Niagara 411 over the course of the week. You'll be able to pick it up there. Scott Sutherland, science writer and meteorologist with the Weather Network, thank you very much for being here to talk about the lights in the sky last night, as well as today's moon landing. A lot of cool stuff going on in outer space. Falling back into here. David Green, Garden City Comedy Festival coming up. You can check on that. And of course, Susan Heaten that we just chatted with. To Nick at Niagara 411. Glad to be back and working with you. Appreciate it. Nick's mom, hello. Thank you for always being a supporter of the program. And Kevin, we wanted to spend a little bit of time on the conversation we had a few moments ago about the fact that the SIU just published its final report on the investigation that it did to an event that resulted in the death of a knife-wielding man over on Arthur and Cindy Street area in St. Catharines in the North End, and 2 police officers that shot and killed this man in the course of responding to a domestic call. And there were rumors and conjecture at one point in time that this man wanted to be killed by the police in this instance. As a matter of fact, there is even part of the report that said the dispatcher from the Niagara Regional Police Service even mentioned to the police officers that it was suspected that this man wanted to die at the hands of police. In the biz, the police would call it death by cop. In other words, you know that you're not going to come out of it if you are aggressive in a certain point and you're going to be shot or whatever, and this goes to so many different situations, but called death by cop. In other words, I'm going to do something to ensure the fact that you shoot me. And then in that case, the police often have no choice. Now in this situation, Kevin, that's the knife. That's the point of the steak knife that this man was armed with. When did this happen again? Remind me of the date.
I think it was late October.
Late October of 2023. So,
and we remember because, I mean, Arthur Street, everybody loves the Valley Restaurant, your gateway into Sunset Beach, relatively peaceful part of town.
It's a very respectable, peaceful, respected place. Yeah. So it was a very, very, very in-depth report, and the report is available online, by the way. It was put up on Niagara 411 because when any of these instances happen, of course, the SIU does follow up with a complete report, as you saw the headline a minute ago called the Director's Report, and it goes into great detail of what happened.
I mean, here's the tertiary stuff.
Yeah,
October 23rd,
This
9
is what
p.m.
they call the 30,000-foot view, the big picture view. Responded to a residential address on Melody Trail near Arthur Street in St. Catharines. Upon arrival, an interaction took place between uniformed patrol officers and an adult male. As a result of the interaction, the adult male was shot by police. You want to scroll down there a little bit more. Paramedics responded. Despite life-saving measures, the male was pronounced deceased. SIU was notified. They've invoked their mandate to investigate. The incident also being investigated by detectives from the NRPS. And just this past week, that director's report came out from the SIU detailing what happened, detailing their investigation in incredible detail, by the way. And so
yeah, I found the full report actually pretty informative, educational, enlightening.
Yeah. So, and we're not going to go through the whole report, or we'd be here for another couple hours. But I agree with you. The report was really informative, very educational, and it really gave us a glimpse into how these investigations take place and the kinds of things they look at and the methodical process involved in trying to make sure they get it right. So, on the surface, Kevin, police show up at a call. Man has knife. It's a stressful, emotional situation. They apparently are semi-surprised by the fact that he attacks them. So the officers, in a way, are surprised, in spite of the fact they know they're walking into harm's way. They are surprised by the actions of this man who has this knife. Subsequently, they discharge their weapons, and 17 shots are fired in 2.5 seconds. And the man is dead. Okay, flash forward to the point. The bottom line here is the fact that there was no fault found with the actions of the police.
So hold on, no faults. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Yes,
Guy
no
has
fault.
a knife.
The shooting was justified.
2 police officers are there.
Yes.
And they unload 17 bullets into this guy.
In 2.5 seconds.
In 2.5 seconds.
So these are very effective firearms that they're carrying. Glocks, I think.
Before I read the SIU report, it seemed like a gross overreaction.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden you find out, Lee, it's 2.5 seconds. He can shoot off 17 bullets.
Yes, with the firearms that are issued today, yes, you can.
In 2.5 seconds.
Yes, you can.
That's not a long period of time.
It's not a long period of time, and it's surprising how quickly 17 shots can be fired. But here's kind of where I'm coming from. I believe that the SIU's first and foremost job here is to determine if the shooting was justified, whether it's 1 bullet or 100 bullets. Were those officers justified in firing their sidearms? Okay. So, in the situation, it is obvious that the SIU believed that, yes, they were justified in using, what do they call it, lethal force or whatever. I'm not trying to be a lawyer, but in other words, the shooting was justified. Did it matter how many bullets were fired? Perhaps that was a tertiary or a secondary part of the investigation, but the first and foremost thing has to be, were they justified in even firing 1 shot? So if you're justified in firing your firearm, I guess that's the end of it, regardless of how many bullets came out. But then again, I know the question you're going to ask is, well, couldn't 1 bullet have put a guy with a knife down and then take another means of taking him into custody or restraining him? Good question, but apparently all of these things, when you read all of the details of these investigations and what went into the report, the SIU says it's all good.
Yeah, they said we took all of that into consideration. Part of it, if you think of it, they say in the report that it was almost immediately upon their arrival at the scene that the man lunged at them in a very dangerous manner.
They were taken by surprise.
Yeah, I mean, even though they knew that they thought that all of the violence was taking place inside the home.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know if you set up a perimeter, you barricade, you talk, but it seems like they didn't have time to even get used to their surroundings. So a guy comes at me with a knife, what do I do? And like you said, if you're
the whole thing goes to hell. They show up and chaos ensues.
If you're justified to shoot once, I guess you're justified to shoot 17 times. They said one officer shot 9 times, the other officer shot 8 times in 2.5 seconds. So how do they know 2.5 seconds? Here's something else that we'll never see. A neighbor across the road shot some cell phone video of the whole incident. Like, oh, wonder what's going on across the road, as a lot of us do.
They'll never release that.
And you start recording it, but that became integral to the SIU's investigation to find the timeline. I mean, how else would you know that the bullets were fired in 2.5 seconds if you don't have that video to crop out that timeline?
And was that the intended result of the victim in the first place? Was he looking for death by cop? Obviously, there was some sort of mental issue or emotional issue or whatever at the time. Even if it was just momentary, the guy had a problem. And
no, something else I found...
He ended up suffering the results.
Found interesting in the investigation, Lee, is they did their, I guess, first combing of the crime scene. And then when they received both of the Glock guns, and I don't know why the photo there to the right is showing up only a partial. You should see the whole gun there and the clip.
Yeah, I can't
and they
see
said
it.
that, in one they had 6 or 7 rounds left, and in the other 7 or 8, but it holds 14. But they only collected 10 shell casings. So they went back with metal detectors, and they found the other shell casings to get that number up to 17.
Right.
So they had missed some. They had to go back because they said, hey, some bullets are missing from the gun, and that's where they found,
kudos to them for going back to fill in that blank.
Yeah, so we're not talking what they thought at first was 8 or 9 shots. All of a sudden it became 17 shots.
Yeah, because you investigate, all the firearms are investigated, and they realize, we got only X number of bullets left in these clips.
Yeah, where'd the rest of them go?
Exactly. So kudos to it seems, and I suppose investigations can be glossed over at some point in time. But boy, when you read the entirety of this, and the entirety is available, by the way. It was posted. You can go to the Niagara Regional Police site probably, or you can go to Niagara 411 and find it. The entire report is there for you to read top to bottom. And I don't know if we're missing something, but it sure seemed to me that it was very thorough.
Yeah, I just read that going, okay, let's see how they justify shooting a guy 17 times who's armed with a kitchen steak knife.
Absolutely, and our natural reaction is, wow, isn't that force a little excessive?
And then
or a lot excessive?
And it's perspective, right? Once you look at it through the police officer's perspective and all of the moving parts of an investigation, something that's playing out in real time back late October on Arthur Street. But boy, oh boy, I remember, what could have happened to get to this point on Arthur Street? But I guess, as you said, all you got to do is come at the cops with a knife and...
Let's flip the perspective before we take off here. Let's flip the perspective to those police officers, families, wife, children, mothers, fathers, whatever. And you go out on your shift that day, and somebody says to you, see you later, don't die today.
Yeah.
You choose not to die that day. You have a gun and somebody comes at you with a knife. Guess what? My wife just said, don't die.
Yeah. No, you're bang on. And then if you think about...
I'm shooting.
The round of emotions, Lee, because in the SIU investigation, they talk about the fact that immediately, like a split second after they shot this guy 17 times, they ran over there with paramedics and immediately began applying CPR. So I know you were just trying to kill me, and as a result, I shot you 17 times, but instantly now I have to turn into lifesaver.
Because I was kind of protecting my own life too.
I know, but imagine...
And the lives of whoever it is this guy was dealing with in the first place.
I know they're specially trained, but you talk about the emotional roller coaster and the mental health. Think about, you just unloaded your gun into a guy, you're pretty sure you killed him, and now I don't have any time to really understand what just happened. I immediately have to thrust myself into the line again and become a lifesaver.
Well, because I think a lot of us in much less stressful situations than that, in the moment you do what is necessary, in the moment, and then afterward is when you start to shake.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you come close to being in a car accident or something, and you react instinctively, and then everything's okay, but then the reality of what just happened starts to sink in, and that's sometimes not a pretty thing. So the police officers that went through that, I'm sure they didn't take that episode lightly.
And then other innocent victims as well, because there were people in the home and outside the home that led to the initial call, and apparently he was assaulting them inside the house.
Yeah, so
I don't know that anybody was seriously injured in that, but they had to witness this unfold in their front yard right up there on Arthur Street.
then the reason we wanted to talk about it is to go to Kevin's point. Going through this report, and I don't think I have ever seen one of these reports made public in as much detail as this one was. You learn a lot about, and agree with it or not, you learn a lot about how the process unfolds. So, very interesting week all around Niagara.
Lee, musically coming up, we got a local band, Foolproof. We've had them on before.
Yeah,
and I
we
just
have.
dug through the archives for DIY, and kudos to local station Hits FM. They were playing some Foolproof the other day, and I said, hey, that'd be perfect. They were playing a different song, but we got a music video coming up for DIY in a couple of seconds here.
All right, and that's another thing that happened while I was in the DR. That's Cool Kid Talk for the Dominican Republic, and Kevin was in Florida, is the fact that local media has taken a great big change over the last little while. The 3 radio stations in St. Catharines are on the shopping block from Bell Media. You've probably seen all the headlines. The fact that Bell's selling 45, 47 radio stations, whatever it is, going to probably be laying off of a lot of people, mainly in the TV side. But local media is going to undergo quite a major change on the radio spectrum, and in my opinion, it may very well be a change for the better, as opposed to the negative side of it, because the company that is going to be buying the radio stations here in St. Catharines are called White Oaks Communications, and I know those people, or I knew them in the past. I knew the family that originally owned their first radio station in Oakville many 60 years ago or something like that. They started operating their broadcast business in a very small business, but that's the company that purchased the radio stations in St. Catharines. So there might be more of a personal. We'll have to wait and see. Big news on the media scene though in Niagara, so we'll have to wait and see. Kevin, Jack, thank you as always. Great job producing this program on the fly most of the time. WeeStreem, we didn't get a chance to talk a lot about what you guys are doing these days, but we'll keep everybody posted on that. Gales Gas Bars, Virgin Insurance, Ace Alignment, Equal Wellness Services. Thanks very much. My name is Lee Sterry. This has been episode 5 of season 5, Niagara 411 Live with Lee Sterry, and we're going to take you to Foolproof right now to play us off the stage. Have yourself a great upcoming weekend, all right? Stay cool.